Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and it's clear to me based on my recent YouTube analytics and the current economy of good storyline Pokemon within the game, I do believe that we are currently experiencing a surge of new players in PokeMMO, which is amazing. And if you're new, welcome. And also, if you're new to PokeMMO, it might not take you long to realize two quick things. Number one, the storylines can be pretty hard. And number two, the game is expensive in terms of Pokeyen. It can feel like you need so many things in your first storyline. Potions, revives, X items, good Pokemon, held items, TMs, etc. So how could you possibly afford everything? And that's not even including all of the MMO elements you'll want to be saving Pokeyen for when you beat all of the storylines. So today I'm going to do my best to give you guys a list of Pokemon that are, in what are my opinion, the best Pokemon to beat PokeMMO on a budget. These Pokemon should work for any region and any gym leader. Obviously, some better than others and more effective at certain leaders than other, but it's really important to understand that in PokeMMO, we have 5 generations of Pokemon. You don't have to go catch a specific Pokemon on a specific route within a specific region just to have access to a fire type before a certain point. You could just head over to the GTL and buy whatever fire type you might need before doing the gym, as long as you have at least 4 gym badges in one region. And that's a very important thing to consider here. Getting 4 gym badges is one of the most powerful things you can do in PokeMMO. So make sure you get 4 gym badges as quickly as possible, and then it's going to make all of your other storylines that much easier. This guide is going to be aimed at those players who have at least 4 gym badges. If you aren't quite there yet, I do have other guides on my channel, like top 10 things you should do day 1 in PokeMMO and more beginner guides. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible, of course. But let's just jump into the list. Now, if you watched my non-budget guide for best Pokemon in PokeMMO, this is going to look pretty similar. Except there's one massive difference, because number 1 on this list is non-hidden ability Gyarados. So it's really important to understand how to use the advanced search in PokeMMO as well. So what you want to do is head over to advanced search, look for something like 20 plus attack and 20 plus speed on something like a Gyarados or a Magikarp, and then look for a plus attack nature. During the storylines, you really want some sort of plus damage nature. You want a Pokemon with enough speed that can outspeed everything in the storyline. My usual slogan is that 80 speed is all you need. You don't need overkill on speed in the storyline, unlike in PvP. So 80 speed is all you need, and then you do want bulk on your Pokemon where possible in PokeMMO, because you are going to run into problems unlike traditional Pokemon, where you can just run a high DPS Pokemon and blast through things. I've talked about this in my previous budget storyline Pokemon guide, but a lot of people come over from other traditional Pokemon games and say, oh, what about Guts Swallow and what about Guts Raticate? These are fine Pokemon. If you want to run these Pokemon in the storyline because you're familiar with them and you know how to pilot them, that is totally okay. However, these Pokemon, in my personal opinion, are not within the top 100 best Pokemon in PokeMMO. So why would I recommend them to people if they're not even in the top 100? They're solid the same way a lot of Pokemon are solid or good enough to beat the storyline, but I want to give you guys my best recommendations. When we have 5 generations of Pokemon, I don't need to recommend you guys a frail bird that, yes, is very fast and yes, does a lot of damage, but has nothing else going for it. In traditional Pokemon, that's enough. In PokeMMO, it's not enough. You will get hurt by things like Focus Sash Pokemon, Sturdy Pokemon, Quick Claw, like things you wouldn't expect to catch you off guard and obliterate your Swallows. But back to the Gyarados, I'm getting distracted as per usual. What I recommend going over and doing is looking either for a Magikarp or for a Gyarados. I recommend for a physical attacking storyline Pokemon to go 20 plus in attack and speed. And you want to look for either Lonely, Adamant, or Naughty. You can see here, these non-hidden ability Magikarps are 5k. There's tons, there's a full page of them for 5k or less Pokeyen. There's Naughty Nature, another full page of them, extremely cheap. Adamant Nature, this is by far the best storyline Pokemon, budget storyline Pokemon, bar none. It's not even close. Now, the moveset you want to end up rocking on one of these Pokemon, a Gyarados or a Magikarp, you want to end up going Waterfall, Crunch, Dragon Dance. This guy actually has the perfect move pool. Waterfall, Crunch, Dragon Dance, and then the final move can be whatever you would like it to be. It's kind of a slot in. One of the number 1 mistakes I see new players do on Gyarados is put Surf on it. This is a mistake that I've made myself growing up, and then later on you realize realize, oh, Waterfall is a physical move, whereas Surf is a special move. And Gyarados has a 125 physical attack stat, but only a 60 special attack stat. So even though Surf has 90 base power comparatively to Waterfall's 80, your Waterfall is going to do significantly more damage than Surf on a Gyarados. Next up, Pokemon number 2 on this list, I want to talk about non-TM Starmie specifically. A lot of people recommend Staryu or Starmie for the storylines. And this is a very powerful Pokemon. You can also run this Pokemon budget or non-budget. The biggest difference is going to be what TMs you pay to put on it. I think going no TM Starmie is very good for a storyline. It's still very powerful. You can use TMs if you're stuck or want to make it more powerful, but that's going to cost you more Pokeyen. We'll get to that here in a quick second. So what you want to do is search for 20 plus special attack, 20 plus speed. We're going to look for mild, modest, or rash nature. If these become too expensive, what you'll do is you'll lower down to a Staryu. See, I'm not going to recommend someone pay 66,000 Pokeyen for a storyline Pokemon. That's too expensive. This is more like it. 4,000, 5,000 Pokeyen. These are perfect Pokemon. Also, this Staryu right here, 31 speed. There's 2 of them that are 31 speed. You could buy these, use them for your storyline. This one, even 25 special attack. This is a perfect Starmie. Mild nature, 25 special attack, 31 speed. This could be used later on as a PVM Starmie after you beat the storyline. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these Staryus are level 40. The reason being, Staryus are cheaper right now because they're coming in faster than ever from something called Mysterious Balls. We can actually see if some of these ones were actually met, to be fair, caught. Let's see if some of them are Mysterious Balls. But Staryus and Starmies, okay, most of these are wild caught, to be fair, but a lot of these mons are coming into the game via something called Mysterious Pokeballs. To be fair, none of these are meeting my example, but that's okay. The point is, Mysterious Balls are bringing these Pokemon into the game at a faster rate, and it's making them cheaper, which is better for new players to be aware of and to go use them for the storyline, because Starmie and Staryus are very, very powerful Pokemon. You can go hidden ability. I wouldn't really worry about it, though. It's not something you need to really watch out for. But once again, as you can see, one of the main things to keep an eye on, this one's from Mysterious Great Ball. There you go. Mysterious Balls are bringing in more Staryus than normal, and it's usually a pretty expensive Pokemon because Starmie is a very powerful PvP Pokemon. So good IV Starmies are very demanded. However, right now, they're kind of on the cheaper end. This is a fantastic Starmie. Look at this. 25 plus special attack, 31 speed. You could buy this and use this as a beginner competitive Pokemon if you wanted to after the storyline. It wouldn't be amazing. It's obviously not perfect. There's a reason why we go for these rash or mild natures. They're a lot cheaper. They're not ideal, but they're still quite good. There is a modest one over here for 7K as well with 31 defense, which is nice. Just make sure, once again, since Staryu is a little bit higher level on the GTL, make sure you have the max obedience level. Before buying any Pokemon on this list, please double check your max obedience level. I've made this mistake myself, so I know how to recommend how to avoid it. If you are playing through the storyline and your max obedience level is level 32 and you buy a Pokemon that's level 34 on the GTL, you won't be able to use it until you get more gym badges. And that can be really frustrating when you spend the last little bit of your Pokeyen on a Pokemon you can't even use. So try to avoid that. Double check. But for no TM Starmie, you're going to want to rock a moveset of Psychic or Psyshock if you can get that. I don't really see it though. So probably Psychic. You want to go Psychic into Surf, which is an HM learn, which is really, really easy, into Power Gem. Power Gem is going to be a special type rock type move for coverage. You can also go Hydro Pump, I guess, if you wanted to for a little riskier and move in your 4th slot. But you generally want to go Surf and Psychic for double stab, aka same type attack bonus, since Starmie is water and psychic type. Whenever you use a move that shares the same type as your Pokemon, it gets a 50% damage boost. This is really important to keep in mind in the storyline run. I can't tell you how many times I've made the mistake of misclicking a move that says it's super effective when in actuality it's like a 60 base power super effective move in the storyline, whereas a 90 base power stab move would do just as much damage, if not more, especially if it has like a secondary effect like the chance for a burn or a paralyze. But Starmie is a very powerful Pokemon, as we can see, in terms of its base stats, and if you want to pay the Pokeyen to make it stronger, if you're just absolutely stuck, for example, on a Dragon Gym, and you have the Pokeyen, you could go buy an Ice Beam TM, you could go buy a Thunderbolt TM. I don't usually recommend this. This is going to take this Pokemon from being budget to being not budget very quickly. When you pay 30, or when you pay 5K for a good Staryu, right? But then you go pay 30K on the GTL or even at the shopping mall for a good TM, you're paying like 6 times the price of the Staryu itself just for a move that you're not really going to be able to utilize after the storyline is over, because it's just a storyline running Pokemon, which aren't usually utilizable outside of the storyline, but it depends. So I recommend trying to avoid TM usage if possible, but if you have the Pokeyen, you want to just blast through and you want to go a non-budget option, you can do it. It'll make Starmie much more powerful to run something like Surf, Psychic, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam. That moveset will destroy a lot of storylines, but it's not going to be cheap in the process. Next up is going to be Sandile, which you can actually go catch yourself if your starting region is Unova or you have Unova unlocked over here on Route 4. There's actually 2 extremely good storyline Pokemon over here, being Darumaka and Sandile. Darumaka actually used to be on this list. However, he's gotten more expensive due to raids being released temporarily at certain points in PokeMMO. So now Darumaka is a very, very good raiding Pokemon, and it's made him pretty expensive to be able to find a good storyline Darumaka. And that was really one of the big inspirations. Look at this. The cheapest one is 38k for just a random Darumaka. Like, a new player can't afford this. I couldn't afford this if I was new. A big reason I made this video, to be fair, there's some, if you can find some cheaper ones like this, I would go ahead and snag these up. Darumaka is a wonderful storyline Pokemon, but they're harder to find, which is why I didn't want to include them on this list. But if you can find them, go for it. A big reason I wanted to make this video is because Pokemon have gotten so much more expensive for the storyline. Like, good IV Pokemon, like 3x31s and good IV ones, are kind of cheaper than ever to some extent, but good storyline Pokemon are really expensive. And that's a showing that there's a lot of new players coming into the game. That's what that tells me personally. You can also catch Scraggies here, I believe, sometimes at a very common rate, which can also be a very good storyline Pokemon if you get the Moxie ability. You can kind of go to town with them, but you might need to spend a little more effort getting it up into a Scrafty. Well, let's focus on Sandile. That's the Pokemon I want to talk about, because I think you can still get you can still find a fair bit of budget Sandiles, although not always. This Pokemon can be pretty expensive, but honestly, this Pokemon is so powerful. Crocodile is one of the best Pokemon for running storylines. I think it's worth to actually just search for a less good statted Sandile, Krokorok, or Crocodile, because it's still so powerful as a Pokemon. The Pokemon is so good that it's okay. I usually say to search for 20 plus in attack and speed. I would just go 15 attack and speed IVs, and then you can find a 3k, a 4k Sandile here. This one's really good, like Lonely Nature, 19 attack, 18 speed. It's just barely below 20s. You can do Adamant. You can see there's nothing really cheap there. You can do Naughty, and then make sure to check for the middle evolution. So 3k one there. Look for things like Krokorok. Look for things, let's go check the other natures. Look for things like Crocodiles. To be fair, there's nothing here this time, but often, 22k for this one, 31, that's pretty good, 31 attack. Often you'll end up finding that the middle evolutions of a lot of the Pokemon I talked about, or a lot of the ones on the GTL, are some of the cheapest. Not everybody goes through and checks like, oh, what's the cheapest Crocodile, Krokorok, and Sandile. They just check Sandile or Crocodile. They kind of miss the middle evolution. So a good tip in general when playing Pokemon, if you're looking for budget Pokemon, is looking for that middle evolution. That wasn't the case for this example today, honestly. It's good to show that it's not always the case, but often checking the middle evolution can save you a fair bit of Pokeyen. And on a Sandile / Krokorok, you really want to go for that Moxie ability where possible. Intimidate is still very good for the storyline, but I would say Moxie is better for sweeping, whereas Intimidate's just good as like a utility switch and kind of abusing switching back and forth to your Sandile to lower your opponent's attack stat. Now, in terms of the move set, you want to end up going Earthquake, Crunch, and then whatever other 2 moves you can. Those are really the 2 big ones when it comes to a Crocodile. Crunch at level 27 on a Crook, and then Earthquake level 44. You don't get Earthquake for a while. I think if you delay the evolution, you can get Earthquake a little earlier, but it's arguable whether that's worth it or not. If you're not using it as your main Pokemon, it's probably fine. But if it's your main Pokemon, I recommend in PokeMMO usually just evolving the Pokemon. I think having the base stats is much better than having the base stats is much better than trying to delay until the move. But that can depend on certain gym leaders and certain storylines. All right, next up, this Pokemon is still the king of budget Pokemon, or queen, whichever version you want to get, but Nidoking and Nidoqueen are fantastic fantastic, good storyline budget Pokemon. You can go for 20 plus attack and speed. You can go for 20 plus special attack and speed. That's one of the beautiful things about these two Pokemon is they can kind of be special attacking or physical attacking depending on what you need on your team. So they're very flexible in that regard. If I go for 20 plus attack and speed and look for like Lonely, you can find a Nidoran female here. You can find a Nidorino. You can find both genders, which have different stats depending on which one you need. Nidoqueen is going to be the worser one for the storyline, I will say, which is kind of why you see them a lot cheaper here. Nidoqueen is generally more tanky. It can be more disruptive, but Nidoking is going to be that all-out damage that allows you to just obliterate your Pokemon. Also, Toxic Spike can be really good as a lead against certain gyms. We can see, more Nidokings over here. This one's 10k for an Adamant Nature one. That's pretty good. You could do Naughty. There's so many here, as you can see. This is one of the cheapest Pokemon that's also very powerful within PokeMMO because it's just caught so much. It's caught so often. It's so easily farmed in the Safari Zone and then in all different areas of the game, like Mysterious Balls and such as well. But let's go ahead and look for, let's do a special attacking one now. So for special attacking, the natures you want to go are Modest, Mild, and Rash. Once again, you want plus damage, but not at the sacrifice of speed usually. So I don't recommend Quiet Nature on special attacking storyline Pokemon. But if you wanted to run these special attacking, you can. You can see Mild, Rash. Just make sure to hover over the moves and check what moves, are physical versus special whenever you teach a new move to these Pokemon. I think I would recommend a physical Nidoking over everything if possible. In terms of moveset, you probably want to go something like Mega Horn to start, and then make sure you have some sort of poison stab. So something like Poison Jab can just be good, decent neutral damage against a ton of Pokemon. Keeping Toxic Spikes on your Pokemon can be very, very powerful. You could keep in mind you can set up 2 different layers of Toxic Spikes, which will increase the effectiveness of the poison and the damage of it. So let's say your Nidoking is just terrible against a certain like gym leader, maybe something like Sabrina, where he's hard countered by the psychic types that are pretty fast. If you could put a focus sash on him and get up like 1 layer of Toxic Spikes, maybe 2 layers before he dies, you're still getting value out of him. Finding ways to still get value out of your Pokemon, even when they're terribly matched up against a gym, is really important in the storylines in PokeMMO. All right, next up, number 5, a fantastic budget Pokemon is going to be Bellossom. The reason being is Bellossom gets Quiver Dance. Now, the one thing to keep in mind with Bellossom is that you do really need access to the GTL because most of the time you need access to a Sunstone. You can technically go trade someone or buy a Sunstone off of someone, I believe, just like by trying to talk to someone in global chat or trade chat, or someone came in my stream the other day and asked to buy a Sunstone from someone. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly how that works. So you might not be able to, so just be wary of that. But if it's not your first gym, if not your first region, or you have 4 gym badges, you can just buy a Sunstone, which is really nice. Oddishes are all over the place. I mean, Oddishes and Glooms are one of the most common Pokemon found in the wild in PokeMMO. They're all over the place on the GTL. They're very, 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 very cheap. You could find a good Oddish or Gloom. You should be able to find some of these for very, very, very cheap. To be fair, now I'm not finding any as I show you guys this, but let's look for like Mild, for example. Let's do a Mild Bellossom. Here's one for 4k or so. 4k or so. Mild Nature. Let's do Oddish. Yep, 5k, 10k. We see a few there, 8k for this one. Once again, check Rash. You want to check those lesser optimal natures because they're just going to be so much cheaper. There's 2 here for 4k for Rash. Now we can do Oddish. We're on Gloom there. Oddish, Bellossom. Good to double check these things. There's not a whole lot available right now, but you might be able to catch your own. That'd be decent enough. What makes Bellossom so powerful is the move Quiver Dance. What you want to do is you want to get Quiver Dance on this thing. That's just going to allow it to boost its stats to a ridiculous degree. Quiver Dance is a move that boosts your special attack, special defense, and your speed stat. If you get 2 to 3 Quiver Dances up and then like a Giga Drain in response to sustain your HP, you just win. It's really, really hard to lose. If you get enough Quiver Dances up, especially if your opponent's Pokemon are special attacking, but they don't even have to be, it's really, really hard to lose from that position. So usually you can lead with Sleep Powder, hopefully hit the Sleep Powder, or just restart the fight until you do. Get 2 to 3 Quiver Dances up, go with a Giga Drain, and then it's GG's. You win the whole fight. Bellossom could just be a fantastic way to push through certain fights. And setup moves are super powerful in PokeMMO. It's why we talked about Dragon Dance Gyarados earlier. And also why Moxie Pokemon are so good, like Moxie Sandile and Moxie Scraggy, like mentioned earlier. Bellossom is really good and can be pretty cheap as long as there's a decent supply on the GTO. Next up, the final main Pokemon to mention. I do have 2 honorable mentions I want to touch on, but the final main Pokemon to talk about is weirdly going to be Jynx. Now, Jynx is a good storyline Pokemon, okay? Don't get me wrong. It's not the best. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Jynx is not the best storyline Pokemon, but it's so damn cheap for such a good Jynx. But let's focus, we'll get to that in a quick sec. Let's focus on the stats. So Jynx has 115 special attack, 95 speed. It's plenty fast, and then a little bit of special defense bolt, but its HP is not really helping with that. So Jynx has that problem I talked about with avoiding Pokemon that just have speed and just have damage. You can get bulk too. However, the reason why Jynx is an outlier for me is because you can get such a good Jynx for so flippin' cheap. Look at this. A 2x31 Jynx for 4K, 5K, 8K Pokeyen. Go look for one with mild, modest, or rash nature. 30K, that's kind of expensive. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it's still 30K for like a really good Pokemon, honestly, is pretty fairly priced, but let's look for Rash. 20K here for this one. You can lower these. You don't need double 31s. For a storyline, you just need like 25 plus. Look at this. 25 plus special attack and speed. Rash nature, 3K, 3K, 5K. This is, I mean, as powerful statted as a Pokemon can get for the storylines for as cheap as you can get. Jynxes are ridiculously cheap. The reason being is that number one, Jynx is a female-only species, so it cannot be used to breed up other good IV Pokemon in PokeMMO, which is a massive reason why good IV Pokemon are all valuable, is because of the way the breeding system works in PokeMMO. Is if a Pokemon has good IVs, something like a terrible Pokemon, like a let's say like a really bad, I had trouble thinking of a bad Pokemon. Let's say a Pidgey, right? Let's say you have a Pidgey with 31 attack and 31 speed. The average Pokemon player thinks, yeah, sure, but it's a Pidgey, right? However, you can breed that Pidgey with something like a Starmie or something like a Braviary or a Staraptor, a much better flying type egg group Pokemon. As long as in the same egg group, they can breed. So you can carry those good stats on a bad Pokemon over to a good Pokemon, which makes them valuable. It makes it harder for, Pokemon people to get good storyline Pokemon. However, Jynx is a female-only species. It's not used very much in PvP. It was used once nichely in a raid. It was actually meta in the Alpha Suicune raid, hilariously, but that was only one raid that was temporary. And Jynxes come into the game all the time through Alpha Jynx spawns, as well as through Mysterious Balls, like we talked about. So there's a massive oversupply of Jynxes in a super low demand. So new players can get really, really good Jynxes for the storyline for very, very cheap. So make sure to check out Jynxes. It's not the best Pokemon in this, for the storyline, but in terms of the quality of Mon you can get for the price, it's hard to go wrong not considering or just picking one up. All right, I do have two quick honorable mentions I want to talk about. Number one being a good Shroomish, because you can actually find some really cheap Shroomishes / Brelooms on the GTL, and Shroomish / Breloom is probably one of the best utility Pokemon in PokeMMO. It's probably the utility Pokemon that I use at endgame the most. It's the best catching Pokemon in PokeMMO. So if you can get yourself a good Shroomish for cheap that you can also use in the storyline, that's a pretty good thing. It's kind of preparing long term, I will say. Breloom is fine in this one. Like, this is a beautiful, I might even just buy this. This was just listed, actually. A beautiful, beautiful Shroomish. Let's go look at that really quick. This was a bit more of a deal than you'll normally find, but 28 attack, 30 speed, adamant nature. This is perfect for 3K. I'm always shocked at how many cheap Shroomishes are on the GTL when it's such a high demand Pokemon. Like, that would sell. The one I just bought for like 20K or whatever. I recommend looking for like Lonely or Naughty. If you go for like Lonely or Naughty, you can find a bunch of the cheap ones for 3K to 5K. So the reason why Shroomish isn't great for this is a beautiful Shroomish, 31 attack, 25 plus for 3K. The reason why it's not great for the storyline is two main reasons. Shroomish actually is one of the slowest leveling Pokemon in all of Pokemon. You can see this Breloom takes 1.6 million XP to get to level 100, comparatively to something like a Smeargle, which only takes 800,000 XP. That's half of the XP to get a Smeargle to level 100 versus Breloom. So you're going to be grinding so much more, which is not fun. You do not want to be sitting there grinding in a storyline for levels just to get this thing leveled up. It is a pain in the butt. You don't want to do that. I don't recommend it. So getting that thing leveled up is much slower, as well as you don't really get access to Spore until level 40 unless you want to use heart scales. But to be fair, that's its main benefit. If you are going to run this thing in a storyline run, the main benefit is just getting Spore and then just being a nuisance. Like Spore is just broken. Spore is just so good. Being able to Spore and then Focus Punch in the storyline can be hilariously good. Spore plus Drain Punch and Seed Bomb. That would be like the set I recommend if you go for that. But if you picking up a good Shroomish, especially for a good price, you can never go wrong with that in PokeMMO because you'll use it later on. It's a very, very good endgame utility Pokemon, probably the best or one of the best. However, keep in mind, it's not that great of a storyline Pokemon in my personal opinion. You have to put so much effort into it, even though Spore is so powerful. But you could run it if you wanted to. And then next up, super easy one that I recommend. It's in my top 3 tips to beat the Elite Four. If you're stuck on the Elite Four, get yourself a sturdy Stealth Rock Pokemon. This Pokemon, it does not matter the level. It does not matter the stats. Any Pokemon with sturdy plus Stealth Rock, it's going to cost you 2,000 Pokeyen. Less than that. This one's 1K, right? Nothing matters except for the fact that it has sturdy and Stealth Rock. The reason being, this Pokemon is pretty good against certain gym leaders if you just lead with it, and then really good against the Elite Four. In PokeMMO, when you fight the Elite Fours, every time you beat one of the Elite Four members, it heals your team to full. So every time you lead with this Pokemon, you basically suicide lead and you lead it, you live one hit, as long as they don't Icicle Spear you or something like that. You get up Stealth Rocks, and then for the rest of your fight, whenever your Elite Four Pokemon switch in, they're going to take a big chip damage from Stealth Rocks. Stealth Rock is not normally a very powerful move in the storylines of Pokemon. It's not good against like trainers on a route. Don't waste your time there. But against certain very powerful gym leaders, and especially the Elite Four. The Elite Four is where this move really, really, really shines. There are so many Pokemon in the Elite Four with Focus Sashes, with Sturdies. And when you're fighting with level 55, 60 level Pokemon, them living for one more turn with that Focus Sash can be the difference of you winning or losing that fight. As well as, like in the Kanto Elite Four, you go against the Ice type trainer, right? And Stealth Rock does damage based on typings. So it's going to do like 25% chip to all those Ice types that Lorelei switches in. Or against Lance, the Dragon type guy. He switches in all these different Flying type Dragon Pokemon, which take 25% chip, which allows you like, oh yeah, maybe your Ice Beam from your Star U or, your terrible statted Starmie, for example, it wasn't able to kill one of the dragons for some reason. Obviously it should, but like now it switches into Stealth Rocks and now it can. Now it's in that range, There's a big difference. How many times have you attacked a Pokemon in the storyline and they live at like 25%, 15% HP, right? I feel like it happens a fair bit. The difference of taking off 25% extra damage or HP is so much. So Stealth Rocks are very, very powerful against your rival. If you picked Venusaur in the storyline or Bulbasaur for the Kanto storyline, he's going to go Charizard. When that Charizard switches in, he's taking 50% of his HP just by switching in. You can obliterate certain Pokemon with Stealth Rock, so I strongly recommend getting a Stealth Rock Pokemon for the storyline, if not just for the Elite Four. Just get it at the very end. Super, super cheap. It's going to be super powerful, as long as you don't have like 6 fully leveled Mons already ready to go. All right, but that's it. As always, I rambled more than I expected, but that is my top 5 budget Pokemon to beat PokeMMO in 2025, plus some honorable mentions. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, leave a like on it. It takes a second, and it's so helpful to me, as well as subscribing to see PokeMMO videos every single day. I do upload every single day, as well as stream on Twitch and YouTube 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. ET. I go live every day, stream for about 3 to 6 hours, depending. Discord's links down below if you're interested in that. And if you want to go above and beyond and support the channel, YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal/Venmo donations do go a very long way at allowing me to make these videos. So I hope you guys enjoy them. Have a great day. I'll see you guys later. Peace, Reno. Yo, Patrouski here, and I wanted to thank you personally for watching the video until the very end. I really, really appreciate that. And if your name is on this list, thank you to the moon and back, because you allow me to even make these videos by supporting the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.